I'm Dave, the Action Movie Archivist, and I'd like to thank you for dropping by for my Action Movie Review, Episode 1, where I'm talking about Iron Thunder. This is a 1998 movie, directed by Jay Woelfel, and written by Jay as well, who's done a number of micro-budget flicks, and produced by David S. Sterling. And if you've seen any number of low-budget, micro-budget movies, you've probably seen at least one of David Sterling's productions. The guy is rather prolific. Anyway, this film stars Richard Hatch, whom we all know from the original Battlestar Galactica as Captain Apollo, as a Vietnam/Gulf War veteran who has been technologically enhanced to become an integral component of a new super armored personnel carrier or armored vehicle nicknamed Iron Thunder. The plot of the movie is essentially focused on Richard Hatch playing Colonel Nelson and his the trial that the Iron Thunder tank goes through. And there is a glitch during this trial out in the desert somewhere west of Los Angeles, around Death Valley or close to Las Vegas. Really ambiguous as to where it takes place. They are out in the desert, Richard and the tank and Dr. Albright, who is supposedly an Army captain, medical officer. And she is played by Susannah Devereaux, who, oddly enough, is a Spanish actress, but in this film has quite the Australian accent. So, I don't know. Anyhow, they are both out in the desert. Something happens. There's a mechanical malfunction. Richard Hatch goes into some sort of PTSD flashback mode, and Dr. Albright runs away, goes back to the base, where they recruit a crew of other technologically enhanced soldiers to put them in another prototype tank to chase down Colonel Nelson and Iron Thunder and eliminate them one way or the other. So, yeah, that's the gist of it. Definitely low-budget film, but, focusing on the positives first. The acting isn't too bad. There's some wooden acting going on here, especially the guy's name escapes me, plays the scientist in charge of the project, real douchebag. But not a very good actor. Most of the people in this film really haven't had many roles outside of Iron Thunder. So anyhow, the acting was all right for the most part. There were some occasionally some witty one-liners between a couple of the soldiers that are along for the ride that were interesting enough. Get a little bit of a chuckle or a wry grin. But other than that, there really wasn't much to like about this movie, to be honest with you. The banter between the two soldiers, like I said, I think their names were Thoreau and Ashton or something like that. Two actors who really haven't done much outside of this film. Now there's just so much that I could say that's negative about this movie, but I don't want to rip it apart. But one of the major pet peeves I had were now the premise was interesting. It's dealing with the theme of artificial intelligence and not man versus machine, but man's integration with machines and how that's a bad thing. I totally get that. The writer-director Jay Woelfel is definitely not pulling any punches when it comes to that. There's no subtleties about his feelings regarding that situation. But some of the things that really bothered me, and maybe, I don't know, for one, when you're doing a military film, get the shit right, okay? Uniforms were all over the place and completely unrealistic. The grooming standards, one of the guys looked like me in uniform, and I don't know, maybe it's just, I am a Gulf War veteran myself. Maybe that's kind of stuff that just maybe it affects me more than most people, but it just, when you don't get the customs courtesies and grooming standards and uniform and accoutrements, you don't get that stuff right, or at least close to right, it just takes me right out of the film right away. And we got that going on. In fact, they couldn't even get the ranks right. At the very beginning of the film, Richard Hatch, his character is referred to by Dr. Albright, or Susannah Devereaux's character, as Commander. The guy's in the Army, okay? That rank does not exist in the United States Army. Later on, she refers to him as Colonel, which apparently is his supposed to be his proper rank, Colonel. So, but eventually they got it. At least they could have cut that. I don't know. Whatever. So that bothered the shit out of me. Another thing, the tanks were obvious, plywood contraptions that were pushed and pulled by off-camera crew. Although sometimes the crew did make it on camera in a few of the scenes. Some of the fight scenes, you can see some dude in the background behind a tree. I don't know if that was a crew or just a pedestrian in the park at the time. I don't know. Who knows? It was just funny to see. So yeah, the props were kind of cheesy. The gun barrels were, PVC. It was funny to see you've got a straight barrel, and then at the end, a little bit of a fitting with a kind of cockeyed. Anyway, cheap props. We all know them. We've all seen them. But as far as the actual the film itself, one of the things that really bothered me was that we spent a lot of time. This is nearly a 2-hour movie, I believe. Seemed a lot longer, but a lot of the movie time, a lot of the runtime is chewed up with Richard Hatch executing dialogue as Colonel Nelson. He's in Iron Thunder, driving around, and he's telling us everything that he's thinking. Every single thought we have to sit and witness. I mean, we could have easily lost 30 minutes of runtime with his dialogue. And I get the character building, you're trying to get his motivations, you're trying to pull that PTSD factor in. But it just got really boring. So yeah, the monologue is something to watch out for. The computer screens, they've got, now this was from 1998, but the graphics on these screens were like something you would see in the late 80s, 90, 91, something like that. Some of the video games at that time. So, the animation was kind of cheesy, but it's, I guess, to be expected at this budget level. Endless ammunition. More needs to be said. And then one of the things that was kind of a bittersweet, kind of a positive, negative thing for me was Susannah Devereaux. She's not a bad actress at all. But some of her delivery, some of her emotions were a little stiff. However, there was one scene in the middle of the combat between the two tank crews, or the tank crew and Richard Hatch and his tank. Apparently there was a previous love interest between Susannah Devereaux's character and a Major Robinson, who was played by, and I'm sorry I have to look, but it's just one of those things, Don Hughes. Again, a guy who really wasn't in anything. Apparently there was some previous romantic relationship between those two, and right in the middle of the combat scene, Susannah, being an Army officer herself, what better thing to do than pop your top and get it on? And so yeah, it was nice to see the scenery, but that was probably the most inappropriate timed sex scene I've ever seen. But you got to throw some titillation in there, I guess, every now and then. So yeah, Iron Thunder. For those who love bad action movies and maybe bad war movies, this kind of fits in the war subgenre as well. It's probably worth a watch, just to say you've seen it. I'm not going to go out on a limb here and say that it's something that you need to see. I give it 1.5 to 2 stars out of 5. It's watchable, certainly. It's not completely unwatchable. But yeah, if you're a stickler from some of the low budget anachronisms and stuff, if that kind of throws you off, it'll throw you off here too. But anyway, Iron Thunder, 1998, Jay Woelfel. It won't kill you to see it, but it won't kill you not to either. All right? Okay, thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. And until next time, everybody, see ya.